In part one of my look at Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Flash had developed his quick mix theory of DJing, as well as other innovations that would lay much of the groundwork for future DJs to come. He had also formed his Furious Five crew of MCs, raising the profile of the rapper, making them more prominent in hip-hop music. They'd begun to make their first records, gained popularity, yet a song was coming that would change both their career as well as the face of hip-hop as a whole. Stay tuned for part two of my look at Flash and the Furious Five. As the Furious Five's popularity continued to grow, in 1981, they were tapped by English punk rock band The Clash to open some of The Clash's shows in New York. The Clash had discovered hip-hop, were very enthusiastic about it. However, their audiences, not so much. When Flash and the Furious Five arrived on stage in their leather outfits, looking like they'd just come from a Rick James funk show, began doing their rapping, Flash's turntable routines, the crowd, very unimpressed, began booing them, throwing things at them. The group would regroup, go off stage, change back into their regular street clothes, attempt to resume the show. The crowd was not having it. Finally, they left with Melly Mel reportedly telling the crowd, "Some of you all, not all of you, but some of you are stupid." The Clash, vocally very dismayed at the reception their fans had given the Furious Five. Meanwhile, as It's Nasty by Flash and the Furious Five, based off of Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love, had just come out, was going up the charts. Percussionist and songwriter at Sugar Hill Records, Ed Fletcher, aka Duke Booty, was working on some new material, hoping to maybe get some of his songs recorded by the label. It was proving to be a lucrative gig for him, putting food on the table for him and his family. He had been a reggae fan initially, was a big admirer of Bob Marley and some of the reggae DJs like Big Youth. He was familiar with the concept of versioning in reggae, different versions of the same record, but he was initially not a fan of rap when he arrived at Sugar Hill. Figured the rappers were not saying much of substance in their lyrics, was an avid reader of the news, was observing what was going on around his neighborhood in New Jersey, thought they could be saying more of substance, and began working on a song that would reflect some of his concerns, what he saw going on around the city, around the world. One night, him and his friend, Sugar Hill in-house producer Jigs Chase, were hanging out in Duke Booty's basement, smoking a little pot, getting high, listening to music. He'd been listening to things like Genius of Love by Tom Tom Club itself, Brian Eno and David Byrne's My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, and he began tapping out a rhythm on a plastic water bottle and came up with a lyrical hook of "Don't push me, I'm close to the edge." They took a rough draft of the song, a rough demo, which originally had something of a spoken word cadence with just some bongos and percussion, very sparse, somewhat in the style of The Last Poets. It was originally going to be called The Jungle. They took it to Sylvia Robinson, who expressed an interest in it. They would begin developing it further, crafting a bass line somewhat inspired by Zapp's funk hit, More Bounce to the Ounce, and begin adding lyrics reflecting current realities, more grim subject matter than was considered common in hip-hop at the time, lyrics about junkies in the alley with baseball bats and people pissing on the streets, a line about broken glass everywhere, inspired by Ed Fletcher hearing the sound of a bottle breaking in the park across the street from his home. Problem was, all the artists at Sugar Hill hated it. especially Flash and the Furious Five, who thought it was a colossal downer that nobody would want to dance to, not the kind of party-ready hit they were looking for. The Sugar Hill Gang, too nice maybe to handle these kind of very serious lyrics about reality. Flash and the Furious Five having more of the street credentials to tackle that with some authority. Sylvia wanted the song recorded, but everybody resisted, had no interest whatsoever in it. Finally, Melly Mel would acquiesce and tell Sylvia Robinson that if she believed in the song, he did as well. Duke Booty had written all the lyrics, had come up with a drum machine riff made from a DMX drum machine. It would be the first Sugar Hill hit to incorporate a drum machine. They were also influenced by Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force's Planet Rock, which had just come out, which is with its very synthesized drum machine driven sound, would change the dynamics of hip hop towards more electronic sounds. Also, they wanted to incorporate some more melody into it. Mel began working on the song. Raheem from the Furious Five would also do some vocals, but Sylvia Robinson felt it better with the guide vocals that Duke Booty himself had laid down. She felt he sounded sincere, like he meant what he was talking about. And Melly Mel would suggest a verse that he had first recorded on Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five's very first song, Super Rapping, mainly a boastful song with the crew extolling their skills on the microphone. But Melly Mel, then still in his teens, had come in near the end with a startlingly dramatic verse, somewhat buried toward the end of that song, which begins, "A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind," going on into something of a crime does not pay tale of a young man who goes down the wrong path, ends up in jail, and ends up dead, hung in his cell. Mel felt that lyric would fit very well on the song Duke Booty was crafting. Would finally see release as The Message, appearing on a Sugar Hill 12-inch in 1982. This is a promo copy on Sugar Hill Records. The Message would be credited to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, featuring Melly Mel and Duke Booty. Melly Mel, the only member of Flash and the Furious Five who would actually appear in the final version of the record. Nobody else had any interest in working on it. The song would cause an immediate sensation, would change the face of hip-hop, introducing subjects of reality, real situations, talking about crime, punishment, economic hardship. Was perhaps the first truly conscious hip-hop song, though Curtis Blow had been doing some similar material for some time. The song would be a massive success, would eventually be added to the archive of historic songs, and would be named the #1 rap song of all time by Rolling Stone magazine.
Broken glass everywhere, people pissing on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise, got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with a touch repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Sylvia Robinson delivered the 12-inch single of The Message to influential DJ Frankie Crocker, and within just 11 days, the song had gone gold. It was clear as time went on that Flash and the Furious Five and Sugar Hill Records had struck a chord with this kind of socially conscious lyrical style. Melly Mel and Duke Booty would get to work on a sequel to the song called The Message 2, Survival, with a very similar sound, with incorporating electronic elements with more use of melody. That would appear in 1982, credited correctly to Melly Mel and Duke Booty. 1982 would also see the release of Flash and the Furious Five's debut LP at last, building on the success of The Message, which of course would give the album its title. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, also including Duke Booty on the cover image here. Sugar Hill Records, 1982. This would leave off some of their initial hits at Sugar Hill Records, but include It's Nasty, which had been based off Genius of Love by Tom Tom Club, Scorpio with heavily processed vocoder treated vocals. And included a couple of singing songs as well. Still very early in the game for hip hop LPs, and they would usually include a couple of singing tracks to kind of mix things up a bit. It's a Shame would do over the Spinners classic and include more social reality lyrics about things going on. Dreaming, meanwhile, would be a tribute to Stevie Wonder singing style. Stevie Wonder's little vignette, spoken word skit at the end of Living for the City had also inspired somewhat to some degree the outro of The Message, where the group is arrested on the street for no reason by the police. And of course, closing off with The Message itself. However, tensions and dissensions were arising in the group, not happy with their remuneration at Sugar Hill. Flash and some in the group beginning to feel that Melly Mel was perhaps being groomed as the breakout star due to his featured role in some of the recordings. Mel would step out in a solo capacity for 1983's White Lines, subtitled Don't Do It, about cocaine, which was sweeping the inner cities, specifically crack about to descend on the ghetto neighborhoods. The actual lyric, perhaps more ambiguous on the subject, quite trance-like. Mel has said he was inspired by a dream he had where he was at a nightclub and saw Scorpio standing on a platform with people taking his photo while the music played, and after the record came out, that scene actually took place. White Lines would feature a bass line inspired by an obscure dance hit by a group called Cavern called Liquid Liquid. Meanwhile, New York would be yet another reality outing for the group, talking about the struggles of life in the big city. But by 1983, things came to a head when Flash removed himself from the group, filed a lawsuit against Sugar Hill Records for $5 million in unpaid royalties, leaving the group's future very much in disarray, though Sylvia Robinson and Sugar Hill would attempt to retain the branding of the Furious Five name for as long as possible in the interim.
Bass. Vision, dreams of passion, and all the while I think of you. A very strange reaction. The more I see, the more I do.
Grandmaster Flash had left the Furious Five, took Melly Mel's brother, the Kid Creole, as well as Raheem with him. Melly Mel, meanwhile, would attempt to reorganize the group, rename himself Grandmaster Melly Mel to assume leadership of a new lineup. And the next couple of years, from 1983 to 1985, would be very busy ones for him as he stepped into a solo career as well as shepherding the new incarnation of the Furious Five. A Hollywood movie focused on hip-hop culture was released called Beat Street. Melly Mel would do the theme song for it. Beat Street Breakdown, appearing here as a 12-inch single in 1984. On Sugar Hill, Melly Mel breaking down a lot of societal ills, continuing to mine that socially conscious style of lyrics that he had had success with on The Message, even reprising that hook from The Message, sounding as if he's on the edge of absolutely losing control, and finds him starting off explaining hip-hop culture, graffiti art, b-boying as a response to pressures put on people by society before going off name-checking Mussolini and President Reagan, critiquing military spending and the space race, I believe indirectly referencing the Challenger disaster while people are starving in Africa, continuing to mine that social reality, a more mature style of lyrics that he had developed. In a solo capacity, he would release King of the Streets, credited to Grandmaster Melly Mel, 1985. Again, Sugar Hill 12-inch single. Mel would also contributing the memorable rap to Chaka Khan's big pop hit, I Feel For You, the famous break of Chaka 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 Khan, which would provide the song its rapping hook. Maybe the most high-profile use of rapping in a pop song to date, would win a Grammy for Chaka Khan. Mel would also appear on the Artists Against Apartheid project, Sun City, boycotting the Sun City resort in apartheid-era South Africa. He would appear on that with fellow hip-hop artists Duke Booty, Curtis Blow, and Scorpio from the Furious Five. Finally, Mel's version of the Furious Five would release an album on Sugar Hill Records in 1985, just self-titled in North America, I believe, Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five, but in the UK it was titled Work Party. And that is Sugar Hill Records, UK pressing, with a new lineup of the group, however, was not particularly successful and featured longtime auxiliary DJ Easy Mike stepping into Grandmaster Flash's shoes. Meanwhile, Flash, the Kid Creole, and Raheem had gone over to Elektra Records, attempting to start their own solo careers to mixed degrees of success. Finally, in 1988, with Sugar Hill Records having ceased operations, the entire original group would reunite for the 1988 album On the Strength, showing their visual aesthetic here. Melly Mel in particular looking very demure. Cowboy is purported to be on the cover here, but was not available for the sessions. That is apparently a stand-in, and that was on Elektra Records, 1988, featured a very updated sound with drum machines and synthesizers. Again, a couple of singing tracks, very much in an R&B, New Jack Swing kind of sound, which was popular at the time. Hip-hop itself having long progressed from the days of Flash and the Furious Five, from their heyday. That style now seen as quaint, out of date. This album does not get good reviews. I think 1 or 2 stars on AllMusic, but it's actually quite good if you don't mind that updated 80s sound and production aesthetic. The rapping is as on point as ever, just the sound has changed to move with the times a bit. even updates Steppenwolf's Magic Carpet Ride with guest vocal by John Kay. This is where you got it from, answering some of their detractors, saying they are the true pioneers of hip-hop, but Cowboy apparently pictured but not available. He was in fact suffering from drug addiction and would pass away the following year. Flash himself would suffer from drug addiction over the years. This would be the last appearance on LP by the original group. They would go off, release some solo music, have various reunions over the years, receive numerous accolades. In the early 2000s, they were the first hip-hop act inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and this year of August 2023, the hip-hop 50th anniversary hip-hop anniversary would see various events held in New York, in the Bronx, with Flash reuniting on stage with some of his old group mates in the Furious Five, most of them still active. Unfortunately, the Kid Creole, currently incarcerated after being convicted of manslaughter in the stabbing of a homeless man a few years back. But the remaining members still active, still involved. Melly Mel is apparently involved in some kind of beef with Eminem at the moment, and Raheem took the occasion of hip-hop's 50th anniversary to issue a public apology to his former group mates for any wrongs he might have done them over the years, and expressed his hope that they could all share a stage together at some point. So what the future holds for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five is unclear, but their legacy as pioneers of hip-hop is unquestionable. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.